All right, Preston.
Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Champions. Now, here's your host, former Dallas Cowboys great Preston Pearson, number 26, along with co-host Cowboys superfan Nathan Ross. Here we go.
Well, all right. Thank you guys for putting that together. That's a new intro to the Champions. Trey, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. That's our producer over there. That's the first time we've heard that. But we want to welcome you to another edition of the Champions. We are here to stay, hopefully. All right.
Well,
we have a great
yeah.
show for you today set up. So
Thank you.
let's jump right into it. Let me introduce
All right.
my co-host, Nathan Ross, California man who is an avid, longtime Cowboys fan. Nathan, hello, welcome again.
Preston, I'm just so excited to be here again, Preston, and to be able to talk to a person today that's on the Mount Rushmore of the best players to ever play, not only for our Dallas Cowboys, but to ever play in the NFL.
NFL, there
and
you go.
I'm so excited to be here, and let's go. Let's get this thing going.
Well, let's get it on then.
Let's do it.
If you are a football fan, which you should be, if you're watching this program, you're probably a football fan. You know all about this gentleman. I mean, if you want to get on any platform and you look up pro football, one of the first names you will see is Bob Lilly of the Dallas Cowboys. And so
sir.
the accolades are humongous. I'm just going to point out a few of them, and then we'll introduce our very special guest, Bob Lilly. A consensus All-American at TCU, two-time All-SWAC player, played with the Dallas Cowboys from 1961 through 1974. First ever draft choice for the Cowboys, I remind you.
Yes.
Was a member of the Super Bowl VI championship team, seven-time first-team All-Pro, two-time second-team All-Pro. That's 9 times as an All-Pro, okay? 11 times total as a Pro Bowler, NFL 60s, 70s All-Decade Team member, a member of the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team, first member to be inducted into the Ring of Honor for the Dallas Cowboys, inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and to me, one of the most impressive statistics about Bob Lilly is he played 14 years in the National Football League with one team and missed one game.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yes. Yes.
Unbelievable. Would you all please welcome our very special guest, Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly. Bob, thank you so much for joining us, man. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Bob. Great to see you.
Thank you all. It's my pleasure to be here, Preston. Nathan. I'm very happy to be on your show, and I always thought the world of you. I remember you way back when you were with the Steelers and a couple other teams, but you came to the Cowboys and you gave us a spark. Big
Yes,
spark.
he did.
1975. Thank you, Bob, for remembering that. I appreciate it.
I retired in '74, and so I got to go to the games and started
Yeah.
in '75.
Yeah, and I miss seeing you too.
Yeah,
You-
I saw you a time or two, but we didn't get to visit very long.
Right, right. I remember coming here and thinking about coming to the Cowboys, and your name was one of the reasons why I decided to choose the Cowboys over, I think it was Green Bay and San Diego. And of
Wow.
course, Tom Landry's name had something to do
Thank
with
you.
it, but that your name is one of the reasons why I decided to come here. Okay, before we get into you, Bob Lilly, and we're going to go all the way back to when you were 3 years old. Think about that for a second, Bob. We're going to go way back. But before we get into that, I want to honor with you as one of the most heralded defensive players for the Dallas Cowboys. I think we are the first program on the internet or on any platform to have you as a defensive player, one of the all-time greats for the Cowboys and for in the NFL. And I'm not just saying the one of the best. I'm saying the best.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm also saying we want to honor from the offensive side the best offensive guard to ever play in the National Football League and the Dallas Cowboys, who just passed away, in Larry Allen. And here's a shot of Larry being inducted into the Hall of Fame with Jerry Jones. Now, we all know that Bob Lilly was inducted into the Hall of Fame in, what was it, 79, Bob?
80.
78.
1980.
And
1980.
1980, okay, 1980.
Yeah, 1980.
And it's an honor to just honor the two of you together. We know he's not here, but man, it's an honor to say that I had on my program two of the greatest of NFL and Cowboy history.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's very, very kind words, Preston. But there have been a lot of great ones, and I'm just happy I was there and was able to finally win a Super Bowl. You got to go to get two of them, I think. I've still got it. That was my wedding band. 51 years ago.
We're going to talk about that one a little bit later on too, as well.
I didn't get paid enough to buy a ring, so.
Beautiful ring.
You guys had to buy rings back then, right?
Yeah.
Well, today,
Well,
you know,
we didn't. Almost.
those-
Tax on it.
the ring, I believe I saw on your hand. Do you have one on your hand right now? Yes, sir. Okay, that's a
Beautiful.
ring. That's a ring. See, what they get today, they can wear around their neck. It looks like a hood ornament to me.
Well, that's
They're
the way
so
the Pro
big.
Bowl is.
Yeah, they're huge today. Not that they don't deserve it, but these are rings that you and I got and wear. I was involved in 5 Super Bowls total, 1, 2. So one with the
You were involved
Steelers.
in more than me, Preston.
Well, you still had a good one, though, and we're going to talk about
Yes.
that one a little bit later on, too. Okay, let's get to we have a segment, Bob, that's called Ask a Pro, and we have people that write in or call in, that log in to ask you, in particular, a question. So we'll go to that right now. Nathan, take over.
All right. And on this segment of Ask a Pro, and we thank everybody for writing in and watching the show, and thank you for being a part of this to all you listeners that write in. And on this segment, it is from Tom Smith from Portland, Maine. And his question to you, Bob, is when you were doing your photography, where else did you photograph in Maine besides Cape Nedick Lighthouse?
Well, I photographed 2 or 3 lighthouses. I'm not sure where, I never was totally sure where I was, except I have a friend who had a CPA firm in Houston, and he's been my CPA for a number of years. He put together, he loved photography, and I did too. He put together a trip, and so we had we flew, we all met up in Maine, up in one of the international airports. Boston. We met in Boston. Got on a bus and went up and did all of Maine. Even took a ship out. We had about 40 of them, and it was
Wow.
it was absolutely beautiful. We went to the finest restaurant, seafood restaurants,
Sure.
and just had a great time. And I enjoyed. That was the best trip I ever made. Yeah, with Kenny Buckport, that's right.
All right.
The lighthouses, though, I think were really favorite because there were some seals out there, and also we had we went to more than one, but I think one of them stood out, and one of them was under repair, so it wasn't quite as photographic. But yeah, they're beautiful.
Well,
Awesome.
Tom mentions an area that we'll get to a little bit later on, and I want to talk about your photography work a little bit later, as well as I got into photography myself a little bit later, not to your extent, but a little bit later on. And I must say, my son took it up because I had done it, and he had a picture of who was it? Hurricane Katrina, and a shot of the Super Bowl during the hurricane. And if you'll go back to that Sports Illustrated, I believe it was Sports Illustrated, where the scene that it was showing was the stadium was underwater, basically. And he was in the water and took a shot of that. And so the reason why he got into photography was from me. I got into it for a lot of reasons, but also because you got into it. So you're passing down,
that, Preston.
yes, passing down a lot of
know
your background in history. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Tom Smith from Portland, Maine, for your question. Now let's get to Bob's early years. I mentioned we were going to get back into like 3 and 5 years old. Let's start out with a photograph or your times as a young man growing up under your mom and dad. Here, I believe, Bob, you're like, what, 5 years old?
Probably 4 or 5, yes.
And look at the bicycle, folks.
Look at how tall he is, too, Preston.
Tricycle.
He looked tall for 5 years old.
Wow. That's great, man.
Big tricycle. That was a big tricycle.
Amazing.
And here's a shot of you with your dad at, you were what, 3, 4 years old right here?
Probably about 3, yes.
And that's your father, John. And
John.
talk a little bit about the influences of your dad. He's the one who really got you working at being a football player and athlete in general, right?
That's right. Well, my dad was extraordinarily strong, but he started riding motorcycles when he was a young man, really in his teens, and this was kind of at the end of the Depression in Throckmorton, my hometown. See that the grass is not growing very high there in that picture, and so the farmers and the ranchers were all struggling, and so he had to drop out of school after the 8th grade. He put up two classes before the 8th grade, but then he dropped out. So he started driving 30 miles every day on a motorcycle to Albany, Texas. 30 miles and back home. And anyway, there was a man that had been drinking a little too much that pulled out in front of him and he broke his femur. And that was the only reason that he never got involved in athletics. But he loved it. He loved football especially. But we had some people from our area. Sammy Ball was one of them, one far away. He grew up in that area, and my dad was a big fan of his, and we had others that went to TCU that were, my dad, he got in the habit of going to see TCU games. So
Sammy Ball grew up in your same area?
Yeah, he was about
50
miles.
Oh, you guys went to school together too.
He would go all over to watch these high school games. And then when Sam went to TCU, he had met my dad and he got him in, but we never did fill a stadium up back then. And so whenever I got to be about 6, 7 years old, my dad took me to all the games. On Saturday at TCU, we could drive to Fort Worth and back. Fort Worth was about an hour and 50 minutes. And that's my mom and dad. That's at my brother's wedding, Brother Larry.
And that's your mom, Margaret, right?
Margaret. And his name was John, but they called him Buster.
Yep.
And I never did know why, because he was a very gentle man, except I used to take my teammates out to Throckmorton hunting. We'd hunt dove and quail, and we would clean them, and we would have a big, dove fry or cookout. And this was like when we had a long weekend, or we would maybe play on Thursday night or something like that. And so I would always take some American-made pliers and take them out to Throckmorton with my teammates in the car with me. And we had to spread them out. Two of them stayed at Granny's, two of them stayed at Mom and Dad, one stayed at an aunt and uncle. So we didn't have very big houses back then. And anyway, it really made it they all fixed really good meals back then. But I would buy these pliers, and I'd tell these guys, I'd say, my dad can break these pliers with one hand. None of us ever could. None of us.
So that's.
I don't think we ever broke with two. And so we would get there, and I'd say, Leroy, give my dad these pliers. Dad, can you still break a pair of pliers with one hand? He said, I don't know. He said, Leroy said, well, here's a pair, Mr. Lilly. And he took the pliers and he went, bam, broke the handle right off. I saw him do it working on cars. He started working on cars when he was very young.
Yeah.
And I saw him, actually picked the engine, a V8 engine out of a Ford pickup one time because the winch broke. And he limped over and put it down. So I was about 7 or 8. I went over and I was going to pick up part of it. I couldn't even move it. So, anyway.
But you still got your basic strength.
Yeah, well, the strength came on later. It did because he made me start. I worked in the oil field as well as picking up the farm equipment.
Go ahead, Nathan. You had a question real quick.
Yes. Well, and what I read about his dad, too, is that he was like a scout for the Throckmorton football team when you were a young kid, Bob, your dad. He did some scouting for the high school football team, and he took you to a football game, and then he brought you home a football that was kind of used and, maybe used a lot playing football with the team. And you fell in love from football because of going with your dad to watch those high school football games and getting that football when you were a young kid. You said it might not be the best football, but it was your football.
That's right. And he tried to, I'm left-handed, so he tried to get me to pass right-handed, because that's what most of the quarterbacks were doing back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I never did quite do that. But I got to where I could throw the football 90 yards with my
left-handed.
Did he say 90, Preston?
He did. Yes, he did.
Say 90?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Anyway, my English teacher in the 3rd grade, Preston, she wanted me to be right-handed. So she made me stay after class. We didn't have any football or anything like that in the 3rd grade. I stayed sometimes up to 2 hours.
Oh boy!
Writing like A, B, or
right-handed.
Pages of it, and B, 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 little letters, big letters, and I got to the point where I can't use my left hand to eat with, or whittle, or do anything delicate, but I use my right hand. But to golf, I hit the ball with my left hand, but I putt right-handed. I mean, it's like my brain got mixed up.
Learning something new every day here.
Absolutely. Me too, Preston.
Okay. You mentioned the early years, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. I think you had a what you call a growth spurt when you were, 8th to the 10th grade. You went from 5'8" to 6'4". I'd say that's a growth spurt. 8 inches in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for mine.
Okay.
I think I was 6'4" whenever I went to TCU.
Yeah.
But when I went to Cowboys, I was 6'5.5".
Gosh.
Still growing.
And Preston, he ran a 10.6. From what I read in his book, he ran a 10.6 at 6'4", 230 pounds. That's pretty fast.
In high school, he was not only a football player, started on your football team at Throckmorton, but on the basketball team, my understanding is that you averaged 27 points as a sophomore. Is that right?
Well, I'm not positive, but it was in the 20s.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to realize that during, in Throckmorton, there was you didn't get in trouble because there was nowhere to get in trouble.
Nothing there.
So
Huh?
we just spend our time after school. We'd go over there and shoot baskets and practice dribbling and all that.
But
sir.
here's another one that I can't believe. And I'm going to ask you this. Which hand did you do this with? As a junior, you won the state high school javelin championship. Is that right?
Actually, my senior year. It was
Okay, as a senior. Which hand did you throw it with?
I threw that with my left hand.
Jeez.
And I set a record, but it wasn't in a track meet. And so I went state doing the javelin, but I scratched all 3 times. But really, it scared me. There was one time in Pendleton, I threw the javelin, and we were out on the football field. We had a big football field and a big area around it. And here comes a guy jogging leisurely across the field as this thing goes up in the air and it floats. Mm-hmm. And it's coming down. I'm screaming at him, and he doesn't even look. And it comes down about 4 foot from him. So that almost ended my javelin throw. I went out in the country where there was nobody and started practicing the javelin.
Not many people know about his javelin capabilities.
I did not, Preston.
I didn't know that until I ran into it somehow.
Well,
somewhere.
they had a javelin in Throckmorton. They had one up on the walls, but they outlawed them in Texas sometime before I was in high school.
So at Throckmorton, who was your head coach there at Throckmorton?
Well, I had Coach Mercer, and we had Coach White, and
would you consider those guys, those head coaches or assistant coaches, as primary guys in your development as a football player? Couldn't have been.
Coach Mercer was football and basketball.
Oh, okay.
So
there you go.
He coached that. Then we got Dutch Meyer, and Dutch was football only. He played at TCU, and he played with some of the great ones there. And he was, I'm going to say, half mean. I mean,
half mean.
What we thought was mean back then, Till we got Ernie.
That's where he gets the half, right?
Yeah. But anyway, no, he taught us. That's where I learned probably most of my football. As far as
this is going up through your junior year, and then the drought of the 50s hit the country. Hit the country, and
wow.
A lot of this stuff that was going across the country became a problem for you guys, your family, as basically farmers in the Throckmorton area. So you had to make some decisions as to where you were going to live. I'm talking about your parents. With this. So you eventually, your dad first thought that he might go to Oregon and work on the Hermiston Dam. I can't recall. I think it was...
Well, it's the dam on the Columbia River runs just outside of Hermiston.
Okay, this is the McNary Dam that we're showing right now.
Yeah, that's a lock.
Okay.
We built about 6 or 7 locks from I think the border of Oregon and Washington down to the ocean in Portland. We're Portland. The river comes out in Portland.
But he eventually didn't work there. He went. The first idea was to get a job working in and around the dam.
Yeah,
but
his leg really affected him in the job that they had for him. Mm-hmm. He loved the job, but he hurt all the time and didn't sleep, and so he went back to work as a mechanic for one of the car companies there in Pendleton. And my dad was a journeyman welder and lathe man.
Uh-huh.
He learned that on his own. And so he was able, he also had a photographic memory. And he could take the parts out of the down the flow transmission, which was giving problems during that particular year. That was 1957. And he would look at all the parts and see which ones were worn and which ones were getting, and so he
Beat up a
would
little bit.
remake them.
Boy, that's talented.
Finally, they sent him around to other dealerships, and he could fix the transmission. And so anyway, it turned out to be a good job for him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of cars, once the pandemic hit, and you guys were hit with the concept of we got to move, we can't make it here. You packed up your 47 Studebaker, right? Was this one
Wow.
type?
It kind of looks like that, but it was a little newer. It was
A little newer. That's what. It's a 47.
53.
How about this needle nose? Did it look like
Oh
that?
my goodness.
It didn't look quite that good.
How about that
Not
one?
quite that good either. But it had a V8 engine, and everything was perfect about the mechanics on it.
But that's
he
even
goes-
small, Bob. That thing, how could you get your family's belongings into a small little car like that? I mean, you had.
Well, there was only five of us.
That's what I mean.
5 people were in there,
No.
Preston.
Wow, amazing.
Trailer.
That
He
is.
built the trailer, and we put everything we could in that trailer from the house, and then sold the house with everything in it. We were very happy to sell the house, and so here we
Yes.
go. And I feel like the Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, I was,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, yeah, this reminds me of them. Here we go. I'm going places I don't know where they are. I have no
Yeah.
idea. I've just seen them on a map.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we get to Pendleton.
Yeah.
We go through the forest, and then we come down into the wheatland. And we come down, and I'm looking out for maybe 50 miles.
Oh.
It was layered, just like this. And it just went on and on and on and on until it got to Columbia River. And I said, and we finally got down to the wheat. The wheat was about that tall, and the heads on it were about that big. And I'm thinking,
Wow.
if we ever had a crop like that in Throckmorton, everybody would have bought a new tractor.
Amen. Amen. With beauty
But
like that.
Anyway, I thought, well, maybe I've died and gone to heaven.
Well,
Hey,
you're now at Pendleton High School.
Yes. Oh, go for it.
What was it called? The Buckaroos, right?
Buckaroos.
The Buckaroos of Pendleton High School. And this is your senior year that you're starting there. And you were fortunate again to have some really good coaches while at Pendleton High School. One of them, the head coach was named, I'm probably not going to say this correctly, but Don Requa. Okay, Don Requa. There's a depiction of a great coach here. And
That's a bust of it. Copper, and that was Ellie White at TCU. He
okay,
was my line coach at TCU. We had Bob White he was assistant line coach for Don Requa.
okay. We're showing some of these photos, and in my research, I wasn't sure how influential these guys were for you. Obviously,
Well,
they must have
all
been
of them were, yeah.
huge to you. Allie White, you mentioned his name a little while ago. He was a line coach at TCU, but his background is awesome as well. That's a shot of him as an older gentleman right there.
That's right.
But he was
might be there.
he was the first Texas 3-time All-Stater in football. Did y'all
He was
hear
an
that?
orphan.
I heard that.
Yeah, look
Wow.
at that.
He was an orphan.
Wow.
They had an orphanage in Fort Worth, and they had a coach there that told them they could win. and convinced them of that, and they went out and did. And
Nice.
anyway, he was good enough that he got a scholarship to several schools, but he went to TCU.
Chose TCU.
Kind of like me, the only place he ever been.
And he became the line coach there for you and others. So up to this point, the men in your life, the influences in your life, especially towards football and athletics, are huge. Starting with your dad, the coaches at
Throckmorton,
Pendleton, on through
TCU.
up and into TCU. Tremendous.
And Preston. And real
Tremendous.
fast, Preston. We have Sammy Baugh to thank that Mr. Cowboy Bob Lilly didn't go do a 25-year military because he wanted to, from what I read, Bob Lilly
I didn't know that.
Lilly wanted to go 25 years and do that, but Sling and Sammy Baugh sent him a recruitment letter to make him think about possibly going to college, and that's one of the reasons that stopped him from going to going into the military. So we have Sling and Sammy Baugh to thank for him being a Dallas Cowboy.
Ooh, didn't know that.
Well, that's what I didn't know, that, Throckmorton, the year I left was a Class B,
Yeah.
and they went to 6-man the next year. So, I barely got out of there on an 11-man deal. But Sammy Baugh did send me a letter, and he was coaching at that time, though. He went to TCU,
Yeah.
but he was coaching at Hardin-Simmons in Abilene, Texas.
Yes, sir.
And he wrote me a letter. This was the first time I ever got any kind of recruitment letter or anything else. And he said, we've been scouting one of your teammates. Max Hivitz was his name. He's a good friend of mine. And we're going to offer him a scholarship. But our coaches have been looking at you. And we think that we're going to be prepared to offer you a 4-year scholarship. But you're going to have you're going to have to have you're going to have better grades. And so I thought to myself, I better start studying a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I started
Might help.
studying a little bit. And it was amazing what 30 minutes a day will do for your grades.
Well,
Yes, sir.
we know
That's his
that.
dad's favorite player. So not only was that his dad's favorite player from TCU, why he took Bob to some of those games, but to have him ride Bob and be able to keep him from going to the military to football, I thought that was a very neat part of the story.
Well, we know you were recruited by TCU, probably some others, SWAC conference guys. But how about those recruiters like Alabama and Washington and Oregon? What was the recruiting process like for you back then?
Well, I never, Hardin-Simmons was the only people that ever contacted me my junior year. So
No way.
Really,
That's nuts. Wow.
even though I'd done well in basketball and football,
Yeah.
but it's just such a small town that they don't think that the play is that good, and it probably wasn't. But anyway, when I went to Oregon, we were at the top class.
Yeah.
4A up there. And so we went semifinals in basketball and football, and I made All-State, I think both of them, basketball and football. And I went to the state track meet, but I scratched too much. But anyway, I visited Oregon, Washington, I think Oregon State once, one of the schools in Idaho, and every time I visited the schools that were on the western side of the mountains in Oregon and Washington, it was raining. And plus the pine trees and the fir trees were so tall you couldn't see anywhere. I thought to myself, I'm at the end of the world. I'm used to being able to see about 50 miles.
See a couple of miles away. What do you think? And I want you to go through this quickly because we got so much stuff to try to cover with you, personal stuff that no one really knew about. But how would you compare today's recruiting, the NIL stuff that players have the opportunity for, versus where you and I came from when it was recruiting or recruited by colleges. Did anybody ever slip any money to you or offer to slip money to you? They didn't for me, which I certainly needed the money at that time or something to help me, just be a student at school.
Sure.
But how about what these kids have today? I mean, some of these kids come out of high school and they go right into college and they're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Tell me, what do you think about all that, Bob?
I think it's going to ruin football, college football. That's what I
Okay.
think. Because it's got all the major colleges that have the big cities and the, the big,
Money.
the big companies.
Yes.
The big pockets, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
big pockets. And
Yeah.
the smaller areas are going to hurt, and it's there's going to end up being maybe three or four probably conferences in the country.
Super
I don't
conferences.
Great point.
But I did
Good
not
point.
get the only thing I ever heard when I was a junior was that letter I told you about. That they just said they were looking at me, and
Yes.
I had to make good grades, and they were considering maybe next year offering me a scholarship. That was it.
Okay.
No TCU, no nothing. When I went to Oregon, though, I made all state up there in 2 sports, and
Right.
I visited 3 or 4 colleges, and none of them offered me any money. One of them, the coach, came from OU, and I can't remember, Jim something. Anyway, came to Washington, and he did take me around, and he was very nice. And he said, "Bob, the only thing I can offer you right now is the fact that we're going to go to the Rose Bowl. Yeah, he said we're going to be in the Rose Bowl while you're here."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought, I didn't know what to think. I didn't disbelieve him. Sure enough, he did. He went twice. Jim Owens, might have been Jim Owens or something. Anyway, but that was that. But Oregon, they didn't. They just offered me a scholarship
Okay.
and
Okay.
room and board and books and tuition. That's it.
Yeah.
Now one of the Washington alums, and I don't even remember his name, but he was a big landowner in Pendleton, and so he took me one day. He caught me at after school, or maybe after practice, and he said, "Bob, I'd like to visit with you a little bit." And he said, "My name is so and so, and I don't even remember it." But he had an old pickup, kind of wasn't a new one, it's kind of dented up. And he said, "I want to show you my property, my farm land and all this." He drove me around for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And he said, "We know your dad has got a bad leg." My dad had a bandage over his leg. It drained from the time he did it until they finally shelled out Dr. Knight with the Cowboys finally
Yep.
took all
Read that.
the bone out. Anyway, so he said, "We know your dad needs some help," and he said, "We're prepared to do that and help your mom and dad while we're doing it, and then get him a decent job." And I thought that
Wonderful.
was very nice,
Fantastic.
but I didn't say anything. So he said, "We've got a lot of car dealers up in Seattle." He said, they'll be happy to loan you a car to drive for the year, but you won't own it. It won't be yours, but it's something you can drive.
That would have been
But we know
okay.
you don't have a car.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna get paid.
Okay.
And so I didn't
Yes.
say anything then because I'm thinking this guy's blowing smoke. But anyway, he then said, and we have some donors who know that we get guys up there that come from poor families, and we know
Yes.
y'all are not able to be out.
Right.
You can't live the same kind of life that some of the regular students and some of the regular football players have.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to help you. And he said we probably could come up with $800,000 a month. That's more than my dad was making. That's when I said, "He's full of what." It turns out he wasn't, but I thought he
We've
was.
been
Awesome.
okay.
And I'm glad I came
That's
back to
great.
Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of coming back to Texas, you decided to come to TCU. I think Mr. White had something to do with that. Allie White had something to do with that. But you're now back here at TCU and under the wing of Mr. Martin, Abe Martin.
Hey, Martin.
Was your head coach there. How influential for you was he as a head coach?
Very. He was a player, and then he became a coach, but very knowledgeable, good recruiter, very, very nice personality. I mean, he could get mad, but he generally, when he got mad, he had a reason. We caused it.
Yeah.
But,
That's you as a senior.
Wow,
That's
look at
you.
that.
Yeah.
That Starbuck face mask. Nice.
yeah, that one, the other night I was at some party, and all the guys were drinking, I don't know, orange juice or something. Anyway, they offered me one, and I put it up, and it hit my nose. And I said, "That's." I had one nose guard in high school and two in college. I said, "This nose has been broken 7 or 8 times." So anyway.
Well, you went on. I think this shot here is you at the Hula Bowl, which is at the end of your senior year. You're getting selected to a lot of the conference and college bowl games. One of the selections was to the Kodak All-America team of 1961.
Wow.
And look at these guys here. I believe that's you, number 72, on the first row from the left. On the far right is a former coach for the Cowboys, head coach of the Chicago Bears, great tight end, and Mike Ditka.
Wow.
On that, let's see, number 55 is E.J. Holub of Texas Tech, who had a pretty nice little career going. On the back row, on the left top, is Bob Ferguson from Ohio State, a great running back. Right in the middle there, in the light number 44 jersey, is Mr. Davis. I call him Mr. Davis.
Yep.
Because he was awesome as a running back, Ernie Davis.
He was, and he was very nice. Really a nice kid. We couldn't believe it, when he got sick.
Yeah, and one of those guys that left us as our
Larry Allen.
Larry Allen did.
Yes, sir.
Left us a little
Heartbroken.
bit early. And the guy on the far right in the number 27 jersey is Joe Bellino. I believe he played with Staubach, did he not?
Yeah, I think he did.
I believe he did as a running back with.
Well, I think so. Well, they might have overlapped.
Okay.
Roger, they probably did because Roger served 4 years after college.
Right.
Yes, he did.
So they would have overlapped a year.
Wow.
That's a great group of guys right there.
Great
Kodak
picture.
All-American team.
Great picture.
Of course, right in the middle, that's Ed Sullivan. Just in case y'all were thinking that was a player. No, that's Ed Sullivan. So you make that team there, and so now you're kind of set up for the NFL to be and start looking at you more seriously. I'm sure you had a lot of bids from other people, other thoughts on trying to draft you into the National Football League, but you were drafted by the Cowboys, their first ever draft choice. That was 61. The Cowboys actually started in 60, but here's a shot of you.
Great picture.
In that first
Training
year.
camp.
Wow.
Yeah, training camp in Thousand Oaks, California. Not far from you out there, Nathan.
Not at all. I've been to Thousand Oaks and Oxnard, both camps, and it's so amazing to be there.
I don't know what's happened to my hair.
Your hair is just fine. Here's a shot of the Cowboys draft choices at that time. Right at the top is Bob. E.J. Hollop follows up, linebacker out of Tech at number 2. And then going on down the line, at number 8 is Don Talbert. Now, a lot of Cowboy fans may not know that name, but he is the brother of Dyron Talbert, who was a defensive tackle for the then Washington Redskins. And there's a lot of history revolving around Dyron Talbert being kind of an irate player, especially when it came to the Cowboys. And I think because his brother didn't quite make it big, certainly didn't very long with the Cowboys, that was one of the reasons why Dyron was very much against the Cowboys. All right, on down the line, you'll see at number 14 is Billy Shaw. Now, Billy Shaw, outside of Bob, is the only one that made the Hall of Fame out of that selection of Dallas Cowboy draft choices. Now,
Yes, sir.
he was not officially on the Cowboy team. He went and played with the Buffalo Bills before coming with the Cowboys. And so did E.J. Hollop did not play with the Cowboys either. He went with the then called the Texans and then revolved into the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. He was number 1 draft pick for the Texans, and I was number 2, and I was number 1 for the Cowboys, and he was number 2. And we were dear friends.
That was a great class as well.
Yeah.
So the Cowboys got off to a pretty darn good start with their first draft ever, certainly with you and the other guys that we showed in that group. So this is the first time you met Coach Tom Landry. What did you think the first time you met him?
Well, I thought, he wasn't, most of the coaches had been pretty, like enthusiastic and
yell types, right?
painting a rosy picture, let's say that. And Coach Landry was he just finished his first year, and I think they tied a game.
To the Giants.
But anyway, he just he said, we're building a team, and he said, we know it's not going to get built in a day or a year, but he said we're going to do our best to do that. And he said we've got Gil Brandt, who he said we think is really a super. He had never done a lot of that as far as for his services, but he was a great statistician as far as keeping records of players.
Yeah,
and he started that a long time before. And anyway, it's amazing that he's in the Hall of Fame now. I mean, here he was. But he picked a lot of good players, and a lot of the players get hurt, so you can't really judge everybody. I mean, some of the
That's right.
Yes, sir.
But you were fortunate to start with 3 of the top executives in the National Football League ever. I mean, Tom Landry, Gil Brandt, and who? Tex Schramm.
Tex Schramm.
And
Tex had been with him in L.A., I think.
He started out in L.A. before. But, hey, that's top 10 executives ever in the National Football League. So,
I don't know if you're probably aware of this, but I think Coach Landry and Vince Lombardi were both coaches under Jim Lee Howell in New York.
New York Giants, right? Right.
When Coach Landry played there, but then he became the head defensive coach, and Coach Lombardi became the head offensive coach.
Right.
And Jim Lee Howell was the head coach. So they basically gave him they stepped up their title a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course, we know how they both came out real
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And we
Real
learned that
well
in-
on both
We
sides.
learned that in Green Bay.
Speaking of Green Bay, speaking of Vince Lombardi, speaking of Tom Landry, as you guys went along under Landry, at first it was a little frustrating for the team in terms of victories and wins and losses and all that. And we have perhaps a couple of most frustrating games and events for you in your history before you get to the ultimate time frame. And one of those is the game against the Packers in the renowned run and viewed Ice Bowl game of 1967. And I remember that game myself. And I remember games where we played where it was cold, but I don't think I ever played in a game where it was 18 below zero.
Unbelievable.
Under the conditions that you and I had to play under. We didn't have gloves back then. We couldn't wear gloves mostly back then.
Well, they wouldn't let us. And I noticed the Packers had on gloves. They had on kind of a,
Ernie Stodner didn't let him have gloves on, Preston.
Right.
well, we were, they had on some kind of a headgear, or
Yep.
kind of like looks like a ski cap under
Ski mask, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that was important. Well, I'll tell you, we like froze to death. I mean, it was blowing 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
At the cold, I think it was 18 degrees at one time, below zero.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my roommate George Andre.
Yeah.
Got up the morning he went to mass that morning and came back to get me to go to breakfast, and then we had Coach Landry used to have a little Bible study. But we went anyway.
What a
George
great
came
coach.
up. He didn't say anything. I was up getting ready. He just got a glass of water and poured it on the window. We stayed in the Holiday Inn of a little town outside of there, and it froze. Most of it all froze before it hit the windowsill. And he said, "It's cold out there, Bob, and we're going to have to show these guys how tough men have to be." And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm that tough or not. After I stepped out in it, I thought, I went right back in and put on my long nails underneath. Yeah. We did have those, that helped a lot.
Well, we know it was cold out there for sure, and if I think this, if we can pull it up, this quarterback sneak that Bart Starr had was played over and over and over again, and I know it had to eat at all the Dallas Cowboy players.
And fans.
It probably ate more at one guy, and I want to get your thoughts on him, and that's on Jethro Pugh, a very, very good football player and the nicest man in the world. And here was a sign that they put up as Green Bay fans back in 1967. I saw those when I came down here to Dallas. And Jethro Pugh, one of the greatest guys, football players the game's ever seen. He catches hell.
Yes.
No, he was one of my dearest friends. Hell, we knew better than that. I told Leroy, if we got time, let's call a timeout and get a screwdriver out there. All we need is Jethro and I need one hole to stick one foot in, and we can stop them because nobody could run on that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that play, I don't know if y'all are aware, but it changed. Whenever he went over to Lombardi, it was supposed to be a handoff to Mercine. And Bart
The running back,
that. Yeah, he changed that to a quarterback sneak because he saw how slick it was, and he didn't. I don't know if he told Mercine to hit him in the back or not, but Mercine hit him in the back and knocked him on the cross. But Jethro didn't do a bad job on that play, and he had two guys on him, plus Mercine hit Bart, and Jethro was the best guy, best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, just a super guy and a great football player.
Great
Yes, he-
football player.
Yeah, for him to
Yes,
take the
sir.
blame, I tell you, we stood up for him. He did not deserve any of that.
Yeah. But things got better, though, as the Cowboys went on. And
Yes.
I believe the next year against the Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, this play, too, will always stand up in the history of the minds of Dallas Cowboy fans and
You better
I
believe
think
it, Preston.
NFL fans in general. As you
bet.
guys went down to, was it played in Miami?
Played in New Orleans.
It was played in New Orleans, where
Yeah.
We played the Colts and the year before in
Yep.
Miami.
that's right. And unfortunately, in the Colts game, some things
There was
happened in
a-
that game that wasn't
there was a couple
exactly
things.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Bad officiating happened in that one.
There's no telling.
Trey, can we
I'm
pull
not
that
gonna
up
say
real
that.
quick? The shot of the game,
Oh,
the Colts.
no.
That's O'Brien, and here's a shot of Bob. I think you were a little
this
upset
is-
about that.
This
And
guy gave it. A rookie brought my helmet over, and I said,
Yes.
that was a very poor example. And I said, I'm sorry that I did it."
Wow.
And
okay.
he said, I don't blame you a bit.
Oh, really? Okay. But like I said, you guys got better, and you came back the next year, right? After the Colts lost, the very next year, playing Miami, down in New Orleans, and
Yep.
this play will stand up in Cowboy history, along with some of the other all-time great
Yes,
plays
sir.
for in Cowboy lore, the Hail Mary pass and all of that. This play by you and the defensive line, especially Larry Cole. I think Larry Cole is the one who kind of flushed him out of the pocket, and then you took over and sacked him for what, a 30-yard loss?
29.
know.
Yep.
Yeah, and
I
it
don't
was
know what
it
it
was
was.
it was just a heartwarming thing. As a former Cowboy player, when I saw this play, man,
Yeah.
it was kind of a heartwarming thing, knowing where you guys had come from and the losses that you had suffered before that.
Yes.
You know, it's hard when you lose a Super Bowl. I've lost
Oh, it is.
several myself.
It is.
So
Yeah,
when
it
when you guys did this against Miami, it was heartwarming for me to see it and enjoy it as a former Cowboy as well. That was great. I mean, that was a good feeling.
Unbelievable play.
Well, on that play, we had a double stunt. It doesn't show all that, but I think Larry went first, and the tackle came around, and in my case, I went first, and George came around. And anyway, my guard didn't. He hesitated. He was a good guard, a very good guard, but
Now, you got him
then I
now.
was free. I was,
Yeah.
right, I was.
Wow.
All right, from that play and the victories after
Legendary.
that Super Bowl and all the other things, you had to step down in '74. That was the year before I came here with the Cowboys. But again, I want to stress this: 14 years and only miss one game. However,
that's
you had to
Iron Man.
leave. You had to get out of this game because you had some back problems, right? You know, the backs.
Well, I did, but I also tore a hamstring
Ah,
too.
so we didn't know that.
They drew blood
Yes.
off my heel, and I had ice all the way back to Dallas, and had
Right.
to be in the hospital about 3 or 4 days. And
Mm.
I wanted to play the next week, and they wouldn't let me. I think we had another playoff game, but
Yes,
I
sir.
can't remember sometimes for sure. But
Yes,
But
sir.
you left the
anyway.
game. You left the game on a high note. And as we say today, Bob Lilly is Mr. Cowboy. So you now
Yes,
get
he
an
is.
opportunity to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think that's 5 years after you retire. And guess who inducts you into the
Great.
Pro Football Hall of Fame? The one and only Tom Landry.
Both of them are on the Mount Rushmore. Both of those guys are on the Mount Rushmore of all-time
be.
greats. Those two are up there for sure.
So after the days as a pro football player, you start your own real life, as they say. And one of the things you did was after the Kodak football game selection, along with who was it, Sullivan, on his show, you got involved in photography. And from photography, you were able to put together this book.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's all about photography that you shot, that you put together. Lots of photographs of different elements.
Training camp, teammates.
All of this is photographs by Bob Lilly, y'all. This is by Bob himself. This is not from somebody else.
And Bob did it, he said, with Tom Landry on the very first day to get Tom Landry used to it, if I read your book right, where Tom, he came in and just started taking pictures right off the bat just to get Tom doing it, and he did it all the way through.
I got to read this. Right here, folks, is my book that I had Bob sign. Yeah, this book belongs to me.
Whoa!
I got to read you what he said. I got to read it to you because I'm extremely proud of this. And this is, again, from Mr. Bob Lilly, Mr. Cowboy.
Yes,
Preston,
sir.
you should be a TV host or on a major network. And in parentheses, he says, or my agent.
Oh, whoa, what a compliment.
I'll tell you, boy.
What a compliment, Preston. Mr. Cowboy did that?
He was a great football player, and he would have been a great agent too. But
I loved it. I tell you, I loved it. And also,
book too, right here.
this book was written by another person. I think her name is Christine Clark, but it was written about Bob Lilly.
book.
Okay. I also had this one signed by Bob. This one broke my heart, Bob. This one broke my heart.
Oh.
And it's right here, folks, just in case you think I'm lying. It's right there.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you can see it or not. But I got to read this one. But this one just broke my heart, boy. And the people standing around me when I read it to them, they started to cry. My little girlfriend, my lady friend, she started to tear up on this. And it says, to my friend Preston Pearson, you have set a high.
Wow.
You have set a high standard of character, integrity, kindness, and athletic achievement, which hasn't gone unnoticed by your teammates, friends, and fans. Right. Best wishes, Bob Lilly. You, sir.
That's right.
I'm telling you,
that was right.
That one cracked my heart up, boy. I tell you,
Preston, that is a great moment. What an emotional, awesome moment on this show.
Coming from that man right there, I tell you, it gets you. Yes, it does. Bob, we have to. I'll tell you what. Whew.
I need to start eating more, I think.
Oh, you look phenomenal, Bob.
Oh, he does. I'm telling you.
He looks phenomenal.
We have got to close it out. I'm being pointed at to end things out, Bob. We really appreciate you.
Talking.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much,
for being a
Bob.
part of our show today.
It means a lot.
For all of our listeners out there and viewers, thank you for tuning in to witness what we just witnessed right here. Thank you, Trey. You can follow us on the Champions on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, or Twitter. Audio-wise on TikTok, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. And with that, folks, I've got to make an announcement that I hate, but I've got to. We're going to take a hiatus for a couple of weeks, maybe, but I've got to go in for hip surgery, Bob. on Monday.
We're praying for you, Preston.
So it's
Yeah.
hip replacement. It's
Yes.
something that I've been putting off for quite a while, and the doctor tells me you got to do it now, or you're going to be in bad or worse shape than you are right now.
Yes, sir.
So Monday, I go in for surgery. I'd appreciate any prayers out there. Thank you
Yeah,
so
got
much.
'em.
Be prayers.
Oh, you got him, Preston.
So
And I do want to tell you, my wife had her hip replaced about 2 years ago, and she was walking that same day.
oh,
So
really?
they have, yes. So it's gotten better and better.
Wow. Wow. Praise the Lord on
I'll
that.
keep my hopes up.
Yeah.
Annie, I know you're
Yes.
there. I know you're there, Annie. Thank you. Thank you for being with him. Thank you for allowing him to come on.
She just
You-
turned 80.
Thank you, Annie.
she did? No way.
Yeah.
There she is.
Hi, Annie.
Thank you,
Hello.
Annie. So
Hello.
very much. Yeah, that's right. Get a little smile for us. Thank you,
They're
Annie.
wonderful people.
Appreciate it. I may give you a call about this hip of mine if you were able to get back that quickly. But thank you both for being a part of our show today. You
Yes.
Thank you so much.
set us
What a
afire.
moment.
Pleasure, Preston.
All
I
right.
always thought the world of you.
Thank you.
Good character.
Nice to meet you, Bob.
Nice to meet you too.
All right.
sir.
With that, Nathan joined me in saying so long. And
Yes.
with that, here we
Here
we go.
go. Bye, bud.